Hi everyone, Tori here with another Scrap Your Scraps video. This one I'm using punches and repetition to show you some ways to use up that stash of scraps that you have. This is where I store my scraps. I store them in this giant box. It's a cookie tin from Christmas, and I just store all my papers in there. So today I'm going to be using my punches again. That's how I've started my other two Scrap Your Scraps videos. But today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to be using repetition. So I am using this 1-inch circle punch, and I will be punching out a ton of circles from my scrap bin and be using all of them on a layout. I'm also going to be making some faux flare for this layout, and you'll see that as I go about it. So I hope that you'll join me in using up our scrap stash, and I hope that you'll remember that next Sunday I'll be having another Scrap Your Scraps video for you too. So without further ado, here we go. I punched out a ton of circles. Like, I can't even tell you how many I punched out, but I punched out a quadrillion, it feels like. Then I grabbed some pink paper, which I believe comes from Basil, and I got it in this month's Studio Calico Carolina Moon scrapbook kit. And I'm using my ruler and a pencil to draw lines. And I wanted to draw lines about every inch, horizontally and vertically, so that I could make sure I line up my circles properly. And what I'm going to do is I am going to place a circle in each and every one of those 1-inch by 1-inch squares that I've created. First, I want to find the center of the page, and so I'm just counting to find the center of the page, and that's where my photo is going to go. So even before I start placing down my circles, I am going to mark off for myself where my photo is going to go so that I don't cover that place with circles and waste time or pattern paper circles, although I probably could have used them for that, but I just am marking that, and then I erase that centerpiece just as a reminder to myself not to place any circles in that area. And then I'm just making sure that my circles are going to fit. Now, at first I thought about maybe doing like a checkered pattern with my circles, and that could have worked really well, and maybe that's one way that you could use your scraps. I also thought about maybe skipping lines, like doing circles every other line. And then I thought about maybe just going around the circle where the photo would be, and then in the end I decided to just place a circle in each and every square. So I have a whole bunch of circles here. I have pink ones, blue ones, purple, gray ones, and also multicolored ones. And at first I was just doing it random, but then I thought, in order to make sure that I don't place them too close together, I thought it would be better for me to sort out my circles. So I'm just going to speed that up so you don't have to watch me sort circles for a really long time. And then once they're all sorted, I am just going to work through them and pick a circle, glue it down, pick a circle, glue it down, and I end up covering the whole entire background like this. And I love the way that it looks and the way that it turns out in the end. You'll be able to see it as I go along, as it fills in. I love the color that it adds, and I love that I'm using up my scrap stash. Like, I have so many papers kept in that metal tin that just sit there for a long time, and so I love finding ways to use them up. And I think that it looks really cool on the back of my pattern paper here, or it's like I'm making my own pattern paper. And I think that it ends up making the page almost look like a really pretty quilt, which to me is such a great background for this type of photo. The photo that I'm going to be scrapping, which I haven't shown you yet, is a baby photo of me. And it's one of my favorite photos of me. I don't know, I just love it. I just think it's so precious. Yeah, I know I'm talking about myself, but I really do love the photo. And I don't know what it is, but quilts and pastel-y colors like this remind me of my childhood. So I think that making like a quilt-inspired background with these tiny circles is a perfect way to scrap this vintage or old photo of myself. I guess it's not vintage. I mean, it's like over 26 years old, but still. And I just really love the way that it turns out. a couple of tips that you can learn from me if you are planning on scrapping your scraps. Stick with a solid colored background like this pink basil paper that I'm using. That way your pattern paper can really shine. Also, as you are using scraps or deciding which scraps to punch out for this, it works really well if you try to stick to like maybe 3 or 4 colors. I've stuck to mostly pastel colors here, and I went with pink, like a blue turquoise, a purple, and a gray color, and then some multicolored papers that had those colors in them. But I mean, you could go really crazy with it and just use all your pattern paper. But I think in order to create consistency, it works really well if you use just 3 to 4 like color family or colors in the same color family. I love the way that it works out. And so there you go, I've got my background, and now what I've done is I've erased the background, making sure that I got rid of all the pencil lines. And it's super easy to just punch out those circles and stick them on there. And you could go with a bigger circle punch or a smaller one, whatever works for you. Now, for the fun part, the faux flare. This is something that I learned from Inky Quill, Adele at Inky Quill, which is one of the people that I subscribe to on YouTube. She created faux flare by using a 1-inch circle punch and then these resin circles that she got on Amazon. So I purchased those resin circles as well, and I have been using them for faux flare. But what I decided to do is make some of the circles on my background into faux flare. So I used about 5 or 6 of those resin circles and just put them on top of the circles that are already on my page. And what it does is it really helps to make it look like those circles are popping off a little bit, like they're actually flare, and I love the way that it looks and just adds a little extra dimension to the page, and I think you can really see it in the still shots, so stay around at the end so you can see those still shots. So when you have a super busy background like this, it can sometimes be hard to feel like you can embellish the page. So what you'll see me do as I embellish the page is I keep most of the embellishments in the same color families and on the same color family circle, and I spread the embellishments throughout the page. So first I'm going to stick down my photo, and that's the photo of me that I had mentioned. It's a photo of me from when I was a baby, and I was actually in my dad's hat, I think. And I just love that photo. So I cut it into a 4x4 square, and I'm going to stick it in the direct middle of the page using some score tape. And then I'm going to embellish the rest of the page. And if you're wondering, this score tape is my favorite that I use. It's from Copic Express It score tape, and I believe it's the 1/2 inch. Next thing I was doing was seeing if I had any other flares that I wanted to use, and I found 3 pieces of flare that I really liked, and I'm going to put those around the page. And I'm using the 3-point rule, where you place something in 3 different places and it draws your eye around the page. And I'm also using flare that is in the same color family, so it doesn't really detract too much from the photo. Then I decided to add some resin flowers, which are some of my favorite embellishments, and I hot glued those down into 3 places on the layout as well. After I stick down the resin flowers, I decide to grab some buttons, and I'm going to put 3 pinkish yellow buttons around the page, and then I'll also grab some blue turquoisey ones that will match the colors that are on the page as well. And the fun thing about this is I just am putting them in the circles that are already on the page, so it just becomes part of the background design. It doesn't take anything away, but it does add some more dimension and some fun things to look at, so that when after you've looked at the photo, you can look around the page at the other fun embellishments and things that are on the page. And I love the way that this layout turned out. I think it's one of my favorite Scrap Your Scraps layout that I have made so far. One thing I wanted to remind you too is, just as I'm working on this, is that I'll have another Scrap Your Scraps video for you next Sunday, so I hope you join me then as well. And I hope that you play along with Scrap Your Scraps. And if you do, please link me up in the comments. Leave me a comment and tell me where I can see your Scrap Your Scraps videos or layouts. I'd love to see them. So just to finish off this layout, I grabbed these pink sentiment strips from the Carolina Moon kit this month, and I just grabbed a couple of those word phrases, cut them out, and hot glue gun those around the page. I think I used 3. I also added the title, "I Think I'll Stop Here," which is an old cut apart sheet that I've just had in my stash for a really long time. And I hot glue gun that underneath the photo, and that's my title, but it's also the place for my journaling. And I'm using a black Project Life pen, I think it's .01, and I'm just journaling around that title card there. And that's it, the page is done. I have some still photos for you, and I hope that you have enjoyed this Scrap Your Scraps video. I hope that I've inspired you to play with your scraps, to use your punches, add some repetition, and maybe make some faux flair. Hope you have a lovely day. Bye!